Hello and welcome to the latest episode of New Cool Film Reviews, and we are discussing Love and Monsters. Directed by Michael Matthews and distributed by Paramount Pictures, it had a budget of $30 million, and because we're in COVID times, the box office is unknown. For those of you who don't know, New Cool Film Reviews is a review podcast where we talk about the latest films that come out. We do a Film School podcast every Wednesday where we discuss the films that we've been watching each week and also discuss a single film topic. In these, however, we're just talking about one film. You can follow myself at Letterboxd at King Frogby. And to the right of me, we have Josh, aka J. Luke.
How are we doing, Adam?
Yeah, not too bad. It's nice and late here. We are talking about, Love and Monsters. And what a fucking banger. I love this film. Like, this hit at the perfect time. The perfect time. I am so sick of the serious drama films. I'm sick of the artsy films. I just want to go on a fun-filled journey with monsters and love.
And that's what this is, yeah, definitely.
So, to set the premise up for the film, it's 7 years after the Monsterpocalypse. Yes, that's what they call it. 10 out of 10 movie. Joel Dawson, along with the rest of humanity, has been living underground ever since giant creatures took control of the land. After reconnecting over radio with his high school girlfriend, Aimee, who's now 80 miles away, Joel begins to fall in love with her again and realizes that there's nothing left for him underground, and he decides to venture out to seek Aimee, despite all the dangerous monsters that stand in his way. That's it. And it is... Okay, so, I've got so many thoughts on this, and I'm going to be all over the place. This is the best Fallout film that we'll ever get. If you like video games, if you like Fallout, I don't feel like there's been anything, where there's been bunkers and, going out to the real world that has been done this well. And, it's just a fun execution. The lead actor is Dylan O'Brien, and he is you've probably seen him in Maze Runner, and that trilogy. I found him fantastic. I thought that he absolutely held the movie. He kind of is this, it's definitely a young adult type movie, but he's a little bit dreamy. He has great charisma. I totally felt like the connection with him and this Aimee chick, which is Jessica Henwick, who's also been in the only thing I can remember in is Golden Fist. She was in Golden Fist, you know, that terrible Marvel TV show.
Oh, that was terrible. Yes.
Yeah. She was.
She's in one of the Star Wars films, according to Letterboxd, but
I recall that. Rogue One, maybe. No,
she was in The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay. It also has Michael Rooker from Walking Dead,
and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep. What were your thoughts, Josh? Because I'm interested to hear yours in more detail.
So I really liked it. The best part of the film is Dylan O'Brien. He's honestly fantastic, and I've seen Maze Runner. I actually think that for a YA movie that was late to the party, it's not the worst, but it's definitely not a great time. Never really got much from him in that. He never really stood out from the one I've seen. But here, he's got just such an empathetic character, and he plays it to perfection. His emotional arc is both believable and heartfelt. And it's one of those things where you're watching this movie and you are on his side 100% of the way. And that's not always easy to keep up in a film. You said this is the best Fallout movie. See, I went with a different approach with what I thought of this. I felt like if the Zombieland franchise became an anthology series, this would have been the best sequel, and you called it Monsterland instead. So then you got Zombieland and Monsterland, and it's an anthology series because when I was watching this, it felt like watching Zombieland for the first time. And remember watching Zombieland for the first time when people realized it was actually pretty good
Yeah.
or really good, depending on your opinion. And they're like, oh shit, I'm actually having a really good time. That was the sort of feeling I got with this one, where I was surprised by how much fun I was having, and just everyone seemed to be having a great time in making the film as well. And I'll also shout this out. There's one specific scene in this film where I'm watching it, and I'm just watching, and he's walking through this bush area, and I'm like, fuck, that looks like Australia.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like, I bet that is Australia. Looked it up immediately. I'm like, of course I know what our trees look like. These are the most recognisable, like the trees with the half the bark stripped off and everything like that. And I'm like, he's definitely in Australia.
Was that
lo and behold, it was filmed in Queensland.
Was that the scene where there's like the hole in the corrugated iron and like all the that was the exact same one. Yep. That was the one where I was like,
I was like, this is definitely fucking Australia. I would bet my left nut on it right this moment that this was in Australia, and it was.
The star of the show, like you said, is Dylan O'Brien. I would argue that it's the dog boy.
The dog, always. I feel like that's a hard argument to make against Dylan O'Brien, though, because
yeah, of course.
When you have a good boy in a film, they're always going to be the best boy.
Absolutely. And like, you just like, there's that scene where he's on the bus and Dylan O'Brien is like not seen another human like out on the real world, and he's full on like as we all do with dogs, just having like this full on conversation, but like the conversation's so endearing, and like I'm so glad that like that's the way that they chose to go, and they didn't like go like with like a young human or like an interest or anything like that. It really is just about like Dylan O'Brien like being alone, and then like he does run into Traveller on the way, which is Michael Rooker's character, but it felt really earned. Like everything felt earned, and like his attention to detail and the way he like acts and his mannerisms, like even the ending, right? Was like, it didn't feel too much.
And I'll just say, if you took Dylan O'Brien out of this film, and I'm thinking of one person in particular to put in the film, and it would just suck. Like, imagine the guy from Ready Player One and like X-Men was in this instead of him. I'm just for a second, imagine that. Imagine they went in that direction, and that is why I think that this film was genius in casting Dylan O'Brien in his character, because you actually care about him, and he doesn't. A lot of these YA characters who are meant to be charming can very often come off as dickish.
Yep.
And he didn't. And there's especially a bit at the end, and I won't get into any spoilers, but it has to do with a situation like he was expecting. But the way he as a character approaches it is very reasonable and rational.
Yeah.
At the same time,
I know
you're like,
exactly what you're talking about.
Finally we get a male in a film who understands human beings and isn't just a complete another dick.
Yeah, I think like you knocked the nail on the head. I feel like they nailed the casting, especially for that, because you're right. If it was anyone else who like wasn't just so charismatic, I suppose, like he would have just been like, it would have just not fit.
To actually take someone out of those X-Men movies that could have done it, Evan Peters could have done this role. That's the sort of person. Is that his name, Evan Peters? The one who plays Quicksilver?
I don't know.
The one from American Horror Story and everything.
Do you know what, like, this sort of gave me really weird, similar vibes to as well? Was that movie Warm Bodies? Just
I can definitely say
that.
It's definitely better than.
Way better. Way better. I think one thing I want to say as well is that I thought that the CG was pretty darn fantastic on a like all the monsters were like definitely like you could tell the CG obviously, but they were a lot of fun and like really well designed.
Yeah.
The situations that they set up were great. The use of like the dog. I feel like someone like had watched like a lot of sci-fi movies or like young adult like movies and was just like, I can do that better. I can do this better.
I think someone's watched a lot of Men in Black and thought they could do it better.
Yeah.
Because they do all the best bits of Men in Black with like the aliens and stuff, but without the endless explosions and the exact same thing over and over again.
My favorite
Like,
line is the one where he
this-
jumps into the water and he's like,
Oh,
"Oh
love
fuck!"
it. Oh, that's so awesome.
It's so awesome. And then he's like,
I feel like Tom Cruise.
"I feel like Tom Cruise." Just
Oh,
spectacular. Sorry, you go.
amazing. Amazing. Yeah, nah, it's my favorite scene personally is the Mavis scene. I think a lot of people will probably agree with me on that when they watch it. I think that's the turning point in the film for me, where it goes from just being your standard, not run of the mill, because it's good all the way through, but where you go from watching a movie that you're enjoying to being like, oh no, this has some serious artistic value sort of hidden in here, and
Yeah.
some real emotionally gripping storytelling.
Yeah, add some real depth.
Depth.
Yeah, and like, yeah, that scene's so well acted, and like, it gets you in the feels, which I think is like
know-
surprising for a movie like this, because usually they're so like run of the mill, like you don't get those emotional connections. But that was where I was like, oh,
Yep. If I would compare it to any scene from, like, imagine, you're probably not going to expect a scene like this to be in a film like this specifically, but you know the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where Leo's talking to the little girl before they do that big acting scene, and
Yep.
they're talking about, it's like they've taken the heart of that scene out and put it in here, and you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting this to
hit me in this
go,
way.
yeah, to hit you this way. And especially with the dog as well. Like, this movie is essentially Dylan O'Brien acting with a dog for at least 60% of it. And the scenes where he's alone are potentially the best scenes in the whole movie,
I would definitely
which is
say
a
so.
crazy thing to think.
Yeah,
Like, to think that this guy has so much charisma that he's more charismatic on his own than other people in the film with him. And that's not to say where there's other characters it's bad, because you do feel the emotional connection he has with them, but just when he's alone and being able to highlight like the isolation and the loneliness. And again, like we've said in previous episodes of this about sort of the movies that are coming out now, this one sort of hits in the same sort of lonely isolation feels, but makes you feel like there's some sort of hope.
yeah, like it definitely gives you that sense of I don't know, like I akin it to a lot of like video games in terms of like The Last of Us, and like that feeling of like I guess like, yeah, the word is alone, like the feeling of like isolation, and like it's such a simple thing to go like because the whole premise of the story is he just wants to like go back and like find his love, and like everyone in the current Fallout shelter, he's partnered up, so he's alone through all of this and the end of the world, and he just is sick of it and wants, and like that's the whole premise. And it's like, but like the setup the whole way through, like him being alone and like having to deal with like everyone being like, you were going to die out there. Like,
And he's like, I don't care. That's not the point.
yeah.
Yeah, nah,
Also, like,
really good time, yeah.
yeah, highly recommend it to, like literally everyone. Like, this is like, if you want a movie to escape this year, like, I can't think of much else that like.
If you don't,
See, like, I would
I
recommend.
can see people who
There you go.
only like hyper serious movies like it, but that's the only sort of avenue I can see. But even still, like, even if you approach this movie from a storyline perspective, it holds up. If you approach from an acting perspective, it holds up. I'm usually the biggest stickler for CGI, but as Adam said, it's good. It worked perfectly here. It wouldn't look better if they used practical effects, because it just wouldn't work at this scale.
No.
And yeah, it's just It has so much heart that so many movies like this are missing. And Ready Player One is, again, I think the perfect example of one of those films that has it all visually
but
and
didn't
has
have
it
the
all,
heart.
but lacks every element of the heart. Like, it's that movie. Every 5 minutes, they're trying to keep you. Um, they're throwing another pop culture reference at you to make you realize that there's not much going on. This doesn't need it. If they have 5 minutes to spare, they spend it building their characters emotionally, and that's something you don't often see in a movie that will be catered to a younger audience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So definitely recommend you go and check out Love and Monsters. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of New Cool Film Reviews. It would be great if you subscribe to this channel. If you like the video, just give it a little bit of a thumbs up. That would be also be fantastic. You can follow us on Letterboxd, myself, King Frogby, and Josh is J Luke. You can see all the movies that we watch each and every day and week. We do a podcast every single Wednesday, live on twitch.tv/King Frogby, and then also published on YouTube and all podcast services. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you on the next New Cool Film Reviews.